Hello, I'm Joyce Combest, Halsell, of course, and I'm here with my son, Lloyd H. Halsell. And we are here today at um, the Holiday Inn Express in Burleson, Texas. We're participating in a Hassel family reunion. And today is Sunday, July 8th, 2007, and it's approximately around 8:30. My reason for being here today is to, right now, is to introduce to you a very important person who has committed himself to researching the Hassel family genealogy and has done great work in that area. So then, right now, I would like to introduce you to that very prominent young man.
Good morning. Good to be here. My name is Don Halsell from West Monroe, Louisiana.
And how are you today? You feel good?
I'm doing great and I've enjoyed the reunion.
Are you excited?
Oh, yes, it's been very interesting.
Great. Now, since I have this important young man here, I'd like to ask him some questions about our roots. Would you mind helping me out with that?
Not at all.
Okay. What I would like to do is to ask you some questions regarding your visits to Halsell, Alabama, because you seem to be the one that has made the greatest contribution and have been there most. My first question to you then is, what was your first visit? When was your first visit? And what was your purpose for going there?
I visited Halsell, Alabama in around 1970. That's when I was getting interested in the Halsell history. And my wife and I went over and just toured around the town, see what we could learn. We found that most all the Halsells had moved away by then, but we found this 75-year-old man who had known the Halsells when they were living there. So we talked to him and got some information on the Halsells that had been there.
Gee, that's great information. Now, so I understand that this gentleman who you talked to, what specifically was his occupation?
At that time, he owned a grocery store on the main street, or the only street in Halsell. And but in his early days, he was a timber buyer, and he did business for the original Halsell, Samuel Halsell, who was there, and he bought timber from him, so he knew him fairly well.
Great. Now, is he the only one that is he the only one that you ever talked with? Is he the only person?
We found two ladies who were related to the Halsells, but they did not have as much information as he did.
Oh, great. Now, okay, I want to ask you another question about a girl that was living and working around the plantation at the time that the slave institution was going on, about a little story that I heard. So, will you please tell me about this slave girl who lived on the plantation? You know the story better than I.
All right. This 75-year-old gentleman told me this little story about this African-American girl and this descendant of the Halsells that got together, and she became pregnant. And at that time, this was something that didn't supposed to happen. So he left and went to New England and never came back. But she had this son, I believe his name was Elam, and she named him Elam Halsell and raised him, and he eventually became a very prosperous local contractor.
Oh, wonderful.
And we went through the graveyards over there and actually found his gravestone. It was the most prominent gravestone in that cemetery.
Oh.
So that indicated that he probably was prosperous.
Oh, that is really an interesting story there. And so, do we know then what happened to the girl and if she had any more children after that?
I do not know that. I'm sorry. I wish I could give you more information.
Oh, wow. That is real good to know. I am real happy to have that type of information. Um, the next thing I wanted to ask you is that about a young man, a young man from California that called you, and later on, a young lady that called you in reference to information about the Halsell plantation.
Yes, my name appears on the internet in different places because I have worked on the Halsell history. And maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I received a call from California
Yes.
from a man who identified himself as Curly Bond. I don't have his phone number or address, but Curly Bond. And we got into conversation about the Halsell history. And of course, I told him I'd been to Halsell, Alabama, and he was more interested because he said that was where his ancestors came from. And as we talked, I said, if your name is Halsell, we're probably kin to each other. And his response was, I doubt it because I'm African American. And
Oh, wow,
so,
that's exciting.
And then more recently, maybe 2 years ago, I received a call from a lady from Chicago. And she told me that she was checking on the ancestors from Halsell, Alabama, and she would very much like to go down there, but she had some concern about her safety. And I assured her that there should be no problem at all, that people would welcome her, and that I recommended that she should go down and look around and check it out.
Wow, that's really good to know. Halsell, Alabama is still on the map. Do you think that it still exists down there?
Yes, in its early days, it was a very busy place. They had about 3 or 4 sawmills. They had several hotels and a lot of activity going on because that was a pine forest, and they were harvesting the pine trees. But once they cut all the pine trees down, the community just about disappeared. And when we went there was just hardly anything there 30 years ago.
Yes.
But there was a sign that said Halsell, Alabama, and that grocery store, that was about it. However, we went back 3 or 4 years ago,
Really?
and it has revived and is, again, a very prosperous town.
Wow.
A lot of the chain stores and things that you see everywhere else. So they've come up to a good, prosperous community again.
Promise you that I am going there. That's my goal, actually, and I come because I've learned a lot of things about my history, which I always wanted to know, but didn't know how to go about getting it. Now, the last question I'm going to ask you is, could you give us some suggestions about how we may continue searching about our family so that when we meet up with you again, we'll have some information to relay to you, and I know you'd like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would recommend that if you do go to Halsell, Alabama, probably the first place to go to is the library, and they usually have a genealogy section, the history of the different people in that area. So that would be my first recommendation. And the second would be to go to the courthouse and see what names you can find. Maybe your grandfather or somebody had some land there or paid taxes, or maybe he got arrested, whatever.
Oh, yeah, that happens. Oh, wow.
So those would be my 2 recommendations.
Yes. Now that is really good information. And the reason why I certainly wanted you to say that to Lloyd and I is because we're getting older and forgetful, and we'll share this with my family. I am the matriarch, and it falls in my lap. It's my responsibility to bring Lloyd with me and get this started as soon as possible because I want to leave. That is my legacy and will be my contribution the next time I get together with my folks.
Right.
You are my folks, right?
Right.
Okay, that's great to know. And my horizons have been broadened, knowledge that I certainly don't want to ever impart with. And I thank you for your time.
Okay.
And you've done me a great big favor and made my trip worth coming. Just to let me know that I should go on and pursue my roots and to share that with the rest of my family and my people. So we all need each other, and we come in many different colors and forms, but we all love each other. We all God's people. And when we all get to heaven, we're all going to be there. I'm going to look for you. So on that note, I think I'll end. Bye. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'll be in touch. I certainly will be in touch.
All right. It's been good to visit with you. And
Yes, do you have anything else you would like to contribute?
no, I might mention that the first hostel came to that area right after 1800, and there were two brothers. One of them he started collecting land or buying up land, timberland mainly, and farmland, and he eventually accumulated about 3,000 acres. And by that time, he was getting pretty old. And this old gentleman told me that the hostel would still go out and walk over his land, but he was so feeble he had to use two poles to support himself with. But that's the first hostel.
Wow, that's really great. And I just want to end it by saying I can never thank you enough for what you've done for us today. You've really made us happy. So we're going away
All right.
happy.
Thank you.
Bye.